And then another adversity would probably be Caitlin Clark.
And look at how far Caitlin Clark is playing off of Raven Johnson. Caitlin Clark, left side. She doesn't even look at her. Waves her hand as if to say, I don't care about you. I'm not defending you.
That's one reason I hate the internet now. Because of that situation. Like, I got bashed, I got bullied, I got called all these things that I wasn't, aka like a monkey or this, I don't know, like it was just things like that. And I just think I wanted to quit basketball at that time. And I wanted to just go in this little bubble of isolation and just be by myself. And I think, you know, I leaned on God. I had some wonderful teammates, wonderful people in my life, like I said, and they helped me find that light, and it put so much fuel to the fire to me to go back the next year, and we went undefeated and met that team again and beat them. So I think it was all God's will.
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So, as expected, the Raven Johnson pick has started 2024 all over again. I mean, seriously, it feels like we just hit rewind on the entire conversation around the WNBA, around the Indiana Fever, around Caitlin Clark, all of it. It's like nothing changed. Same narratives, same arguments, same people saying the exact same things. Just a different ear. And I'm sitting here thinking, what is even the difference now between WNBA media and Twitter? Like, genuinely, what is the difference? Because the way some of this stuff is being pushed, it doesn't feel like analysis anymore. It just feels like agenda, noise, and people trying to stir something that honestly shouldn't even exist. Because here's the thing, it is happening again. And if you don't know what I mean when I say it's happening again, I'm talking about that same narrative being pushed that Indiana Fever fans are racist, that players of color should want out. And now, somehow, we've reached the point where people are demanding Caitlin Clark publicly apologize to Raven Johnson. And I'm just sitting here like, for what? Raven Johnson doesn't even want an apology. That's the craziest part about all this. She doesn't want one. This isn't about her. It's not even about Caitlin Clark. This is about people online who are addicted to drama and outrage. That's what this is. And the problem is, the more this nonsense keeps happening, the harder it becomes to actually build a functional team environment. We literally saw it play out in 2024. You had players visibly affected by all the noise, all the pressure, all the narratives being thrown around. It wasn't just basketball anymore. It became something way bigger and honestly, way more toxic. Like, you had Nylissa Smith struggling toward the end of the season. You had situations where players just didn't want to deal with the constant spotlight and criticism. And look, stepping away from that, completely fair. Not everyone wants to deal with that level of chaos, and they shouldn't have to. But now we're back here again. Now you've got people demanding that Caitlin Clark not only apologize, but also denounce her own fan base. And I'm just like, what are we doing? Seriously, what are we doing? Denounce her fans? For what exactly? For supposedly bullying Raven Johnson over that moment where she got waved off? Let's be real for a second. There is not some massive group of Iowa fans who are out there targeting Raven Johnson over that. That narrative feels completely manufactured. Because think about it logically. When has it ever been normal for fans of one team to go after a random opposing player just because they had a bad moment in a game? That's not how sports fandom works. If anything, the harshest criticism usually comes from your own fan base. And let's not pretend that Raven Johnson didn't get criticism from South Carolina fans at the time. Of course she did. That's sports. When you have a big platform and something goes wrong in a big game, people react. It's unfortunate, but it happens across every sport. But here's what also gets lost in all of this. Raven Johnson actually stepped up in a big way in 2024. People forget that part. That 3-guard rotation they ran, it worked. She played her role. She contributed. She had moments where she made a real impact, especially defensively. And that's why this whole situation is so frustrating, because instead of talking about her as a basketball player, everything gets dragged into this bigger narrative that has nothing to do with the game itself. And that's been the biggest issue with the WNBA discourse lately. It feels like the basketball keeps getting pushed to the side. Everything becomes about narratives, about fan bases, about who supports who said what, who didn't say enough. And it's exhausting. Because I remember even last year, there were situations that had absolutely nothing to do with Caitlin Clark, and somehow they still got linked back to her fans. It didn't matter what actually happened, the conclusion was already decided. And that's what it feels like again now. It's like no matter what happens, there's this default setting where everything gets blamed on one group of people. And that's just not how reality works. It's not that simple. Now, on the flip side, let's also be honest. If there are Fever fans who are going to actively root against Raven Johnson just because of all this drama, that's not right either. That's just adding more fuel to the fire. Because now what you're creating is this weird divide where fans are turning on their own players before they've even stepped on the court. And that's a disaster waiting to happen. And then you've got influencers and TikTok personalities jumping into the mix, making even bigger claims, pushing even stronger narratives, and it just spirals out of control. Suddenly, it's not even about basketball anymore. It's about headlines, clicks, and controversy. And meanwhile, the actual reason a lot of fans were frustrated gets completely ignored. A lot of Fever fans didn't want another point guard. That's it. It's that simple. They looked at the roster, they looked at the needs of the team, and they felt like this wasn't the right move. And you can agree or disagree with that, but that's a basketball conversation. That's a normal fan reaction. That doesn't automatically mean anything deeper than that. But instead of having that discussion, everything gets turned into something else. And that's what makes this whole situation so frustrating, because it puts fans in a position where they feel like they can't even have an opinion without being labeled or misunderstood. And again, this isn't something people are imagining. You've literally had media members come out and admit that in 2024, they avoided being publicly supportive of Caitlin Clark because of how it might be perceived. That's real. That actually happened. So now when people see the same patterns starting again, of course they're going to react. And that brings us back to the pick itself. Do I hate the Raven Johnson pick? No, I think she's a solid player. I think she can contribute. I think she has defensive upside and could fit into certain lineups. But does the pick make perfect sense? Not really, especially when you look at the current roster, especially when you look at the point guard situation, it raises questions. And those are fair questions to ask. Because when people say, oh, well, Ty Harris might leave next year, okay, but have you actually looked at the market? Point guards are not getting paid like that right now. The market is weird. It's inconsistent. You've got good players not getting the deals people expected. So building your draft strategy around that uncertainty, it's risky. And that's why some fans are confused. It's not hate, it's confusion. But unfortunately, that nuance gets completely lost once the online noise kicks in, and then everything becomes extreme. Everything becomes black and white. You're either on one side or the other. There's no middle ground. And that's where things start to go off the rails, because now every single Raven Johnson performance is going to be overanalyzed. If she plays well, people will use it to push one narrative. If she struggles, people will use it to push another. And we've already seen how that plays out with other players. Caitlin Clark can have a 20-point, 10-assist game and still get criticized if the team loses. Meanwhile, other players can put up stats and losses and get praised. The standards are just different. It is what it is. And that's not even necessarily about the players themselves. It's about the expectations, the spotlight, and the narrative surrounding them. So now you're bringing Raven Johnson into that same environment. And instead of just letting her develop, letting her play, letting her find her role, you've already created the storm around her before she's even started. And that's the real issue here. Not the player, not the pick, the environment. Because if this keeps going the way it's going to be another season where the conversation is dominated by everything except the actual basketball. And that's a shame. Because at the end of the day, this should be about the game, about how the team improves, how players develop, how they compete, not about constant online battles and forced narratives. But yeah, like I said, it's happening again. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.